A hazardous material, or hazmat for short, is a substance or material that the Secretary of Transportation has determined is capable of posing an unreasonable risk to health, safety, and property when transported in commerce. Or to put it simply, hazmat can be dangerous, very dangerous. Hazardous materials can cause physical harm to people and damage property. The security measures you will take to protect hazmat vary depending on your company, location, and job responsibilities. It also depends on how dangerous the hazmat is and what kinds of hazards it might pose if it fell into the wrong hands. You're here today because you're involved in some part of the hazmat transportation process and therefore share in the responsibility of keeping hazmat secure until it reaches its final destination. This video helps you meet the security awareness training requirement. It was designed to introduce you to security risks associated with the hazmat transportation process and ways to enhance security. It'll also include how to spot a possible security threat and respond appropriately. At the end of this program, you'll be able to recognize potential security threats and ways to reduce them. You'll be able to identify suspicious behaviors and describe how to report it. And finally, you'll be able to list precautions hazmat drivers should take to keep their cargo safe. Millions of tons of hazmat are moved across the country every day to provide heat, fuel, raw materials for industry, and even medicine. If just one of those shipments were to fall into the wrong hands, the results could be disastrous. Our nation's law enforcement and military are being vigilant, watching over many potential targets such as ports of entry, government buildings, water supplies, sporting events, and major transportation hubs. Your company should also be constantly monitoring potential areas of weakness and assessing the level of risk at your facility. But ultimately, as a hazmat employee, it's up to you to help ensure every hazmat shipment you're involved with arrives at its destination safely and securely. Facilities that house or vehicles that transport hazmat may be targeted for sabotage. This could include stealing hazmat with the intent to use it for destructive purposes. Some examples might include things like gasoline or other flammable materials or gases. These criminals could target poisons or materials that are poisonous when they're inhaled. They could also be looking for combinations of materials that, when mixed together, can become potentially deadly weapons. And we can't forget about explosives. Hazmat security risks take many different forms. For instance, an organized terrorist group could direct its members to obtain part-time or temporary jobs in which they have access to hazmat, and then instruct them to carry out an act of sabotage or theft. A hacker with deadly motives could infiltrate a company's computer system and redirect an entire load of hazmat, causing a truck driver to unknowingly make a delivery to the hacker's accomplices at a phony company. Or a disgruntled employee who's angry with the company could decide to use his or her knowledge of hazardous materials to get revenge against company management. What's worse is, it's not always easy to recognize a potential threat. The saboteurs may or may not be U.S. citizens. They may hold a blue or white-collar job. They may be radically religious or have no ties to any religion at all. A saboteur could be a complete stranger or a coworker who's infiltrated a legitimate business to gain trust and wants to appear like the average Jane or Joe. Have you ever heard the saying, "You can't judge a book by its cover"? It may never have been truer than when talking about who may pose a security risk. Talk with your supervisor to make sure you understand how to report potential hazmat security breaches. Make sure you know who to contact internally, including names, titles, and phone numbers. Your supervisor should also help you learn how to evaluate whether an event is an emergency or non-emergency. This will help you determine in what situations you need to contact 911 before contacting your company representative. There are some basic recommended industry guidelines for establishing and maintaining a company's hazmat security. You'll probably notice your own company following at least a few of these recommendations. They include things like conducting security checks of personnel and vehicles, or requiring an ID card or badge to access hazmat areas. They might also maintain accurate and updated inventories of all hazmat, so they know exactly what's on the premises at all times. Perhaps you'll notice your company making sure all hazmat storage areas are well lit and secure, and inspecting them regularly. They likely will use locks, alarms, and surveillance cameras as protective measures in hazmat areas, and protect high-risk hazmat areas with security guards. It may also be company policy to conduct security checks of all hazmat packages and shipping documents. Because you work with hazmat, it's important you be continuously observant of your surroundings and the people working around you, and note any unusual behavior. Watch out for unauthorized people trying to access equipment or restricted areas. Take note of anyone appearing to be extremely nervous, agitated, or hiding something, or even an obviously disgruntled employee. Pay particular attention to anyone asking sensitive questions or requesting information when he or she is not authorized to do so. Keep an eye on anyone that doesn't have proper identification when asked to produce it, or any unfamiliar vehicles that are parked where they don't belong. And it should go without saying, but be aware of anyone possessing a weapon. If you witness these or any other kinds of suspicious behavior, report it to your supervisor immediately. Even if it seems minor, report anything you see outside of normal behavior. When witnessing what you believe to be a security breach, gather facts. You'll want to be able to create a description of the suspect and their vehicle for the police officer or company who will be investigating the incident. When gathering facts about a person, be sure to include their gender and characteristics like their hair color and length, and any facial hair they may have. Take your best guess at their age, race, height, and weight. If they say anything out loud, take note of the accent or language they were speaking. If there is more than one person, be sure to count the total number of people. Feel free to include anything else you feel may be significant, such as any identifying marks such as scars and tattoos, and what they were wearing. When gathering facts on a vehicle, try to remember information like the vehicle's year, make, model, and color. Any body damage or rust spots, bumper stickers, identifiable accessories, and the license plate number. Aside from noting suspicious behavior, you can also assist your company with their security measures by reporting anything you notice about the facility that may compromise its security, such as a gate that has been left open or a damaged fence. Don't assume someone else has already seen and reported it. It's much better to have multiple calls to report a problem than none. Hazmat is most likely to be stolen or misused when it's being transported from one place to another. To keep hazmat safe, drivers must take precautions beyond just locking up their truck and trailer. And while you may not necessarily be a hazmat driver yourself, it's good for you to understand how to keep hazmat safe in the transportation process. For instance, drivers should avoid heavily populated areas, places where crowds are assembled, tunnels, narrow streets, and alleys. They should try not to stop until they reach their destination. If they must stop, they should always select locations with adequate lighting on well-traveled roads and avoid high crime or dangerous areas. When driving to frequent destinations, they should try to switch up which way they go to get there. While they should continue to talk regularly with their dispatcher, they should not discuss the load they are carrying on the CB or with anyone not directly involved with the shipment. And finally, drivers should confirm the location they're delivering to is correct and only sign their cargo over to whoever is listed on the shipping paper or bill of lading. Over and above the general security awareness training you just received, employees who work for a company required to have a written security plan may need to receive company-specific, in-depth security training. A written security plan is required for companies that offer or transport highly hazardous materials or certain hazardous materials in large quantities. In-depth training will include addressing the company's security plan and the implementation of it. It will also include company-specific security objectives, specific security procedures, employee responsibilities, actions to be taken in the event of a security breach, and the organizational security structure of the company. Talk to your supervisor to determine if in-depth security training is required for you. In the wrong hands, hazardous materials can become not only dangerous, but deadly. Being able to recognize potential security threats and suspicious behavior is key to keeping everyone safe. No matter what role you play in the transportation process, thank you for your efforts to keep hazmat secure and out of the wrong hands.